check this out. The old man keeps hearing weird noises coming from the abandoned water tank, so he asked some neighbors in the village to come take a look to see what exactly was in there, making those strange sounds from above, because back when the villagers used the water, they found snakes in the tank. Since then, nobody dared to use the tank anymore, and it has been sitting idle ever since. Plus the water that came out was full of mud and sand. This problem had been bothering the villagers for a long time. Seeing this situation, the neighbor decided to help the villagers check it out. After learning more about the tank's condition, the neighbor also called his wife over to help with the cleaning, because there was way too much junk piled up around the tank, and places like that are easy spots for snakes to hide. Then the neighbor brought a ladder and climbed up to the top of the tank. Turns out the weeds up there had grown really thick. With things looking like this, there was no way any water could come out, so the neighbor first cleared away the weeds on top. Since the tank had been unused for a while, it's not surprising it ended up like this. As long as there are no snakes inside the tank, everything else is manageable. After the neighbor cleared out all the weeds, the filter at the bottom was completely clogged with dirt. Fixing it up was pretty exhausting. To make the tank usable again in the future, the neighbor had to lift up all the filter screens that were on the surface. After years of buildup, there was a lot of sand and mud on top. The bricks that were placed there earlier had also shifted out of place. All the gaps were filled with sediment, so there was no way it could filter anything. The tank didn't look that big, but cleaning it was no small task. You could see that the entire bottom of the tank was piled high with sludge. Now they had to dig it all out piece by piece. The reason there was so much sludge inside the tank was because it had been left behind from filtering out impurities over a long time. You can see that after cleaning, the tank has sunk down quite a bit, but around the edges of the tank, there was still a lot of mud stuck on. To get this tank back into use, now they needed to give it a thorough cleaning. You could see there was still a ton of mud at the bottom. All of that had settled there during previous use. Then the neighbor got a pressure washer and sprayed down the walls of the tank. The walls that had been plastered before had already peeled off in many places. They would probably need to replaster the walls with cement mortar. That would likely be the only way to make sure the tank didn't leak. After washing it, the neighbor got some mortar and started filling in and replastering the walls. That would help keep the water in the tank clean enough and also prevent leaks from happening, because the tank had been used for so long. Since this tank was only meant for filtering, not for storing water, it didn't need to be very big. After patching up the damaged spots, the neighbor got some bricks and started laying them in order at the bottom of the tank. The point of doing this was to support the filtering material. Because their tap water comes from the mountains, it all has to go through a filter tank like this to be usable. After laying down several layers of material, now on the top surface they could spread a layer of fine sand. That way tiny particles would get trapped there. After putting all the fine sand back and finishing the top surface of the tank, next the neighbor went to check the secondary holding tank. You could see the water in this holding tank was already very muddy, mainly because the primary holding tank was broken and wasn't filtering anything, so the water in the secondary holding tank hadn't been filtered at all. With all the impurities built up, the outlet got clogged. Since there was still water in the tank, they decided to give it a full cleaning and dump all the dirty water out. You could see there was still quite a bit of debris on the ground, so the primary filtering system is really important. Only by making sure the primary filter tank works properly will the water quality in the secondary tank be any better. As the neighbor kept cleaning, the secondary holding tank was finally clean. Then he started filling the primary holding tank with water. The tank that was clogged up before can finally be used normally, and the water coming out is clean and safe.